hope the signals, it
Go.
sounds like it's great.
Right, so it should be recording now, I hope.
The signal, okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think it's because everybody's currently on the internet. So the signal kind of comes and
I
goes.
think so.
But we're going to do this
Yeah,
anyway.
I
So
think
thanks
you're right.
for chatting to me, Wayne. Cheers to that. Got to have the coffee.
Absolute pleasure. Yeah, had my share this morning.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So how's lockdown treating you guys?
Yeah, okay, thank you. It's one of the, I think you go through phases, hey, where you almost go through different stages of adjusting to what the heck is this. And then, but mostly for us, I think it's been trying to keep businesses going, but at the same time, I want to come out with something, having accomplished something as well. So I've been busy writing my book and trying to invest any spare time that I've got in doing that. So come the end of April, that I've at least um, taken the opportunity, because hopefully at the end of it all, we're going to be so busy there's not going to be time. So we'll look back and see what we've accomplished. And I hope it's going okay with you guys as well. I see lots of running going on, running and exercises and.
Indeed, indeed. Now, listen, we have to keep busy, hey? I have to keep busy. Basically made the decision that I will come out of this fitter and stronger, both physically and mentally.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a good job of that so far.
I think so, definitely. As you've mentioned, there's been a lot of running, a lot of exercising, and we've got some interesting initiatives coming up. Just hang on a second, I've got someone that wants to join us here.
Okay, all right.
This is little Licorice. She'll be participating.
This is the runner.
Well, one of them. There's three of them now, the premises, eh?
Yeah.
Okay, well, quite interesting that you're talking about your book, because we'll touch on that just now. But first, I want you to just run us through, and I know you and I have chatted about this before for the show, but obviously this video and this podcast is going to go onto a different forum. So if you can just tell us again, what was the motivation behind the One Land Love It Foundation? And what do you guys stand for? What are you aiming to do?
Yeah, so Sharon, the background is quite interesting, because I think it arose out of some personal development from my side, and really I think it stemmed from getting to a point in my life where I felt that I was on this treadmill of life, and not really accomplishing a lot. I was in that corporate grind, where you focus on really just the goals of the company or the business, and working paycheck to paycheck. But it really wasn't enough. And it was actually in the December holidays when I had a bit of time to think about things, and the brain tends to relax a little bit. And I started thinking about life really, and saying, what is it that I want to do, and where can I make a difference? It's not enough for me just to be existing. I need to make a difference with something that's a passion of mine. And so, that then gave rise to the thought that I wanted to stretch myself, even though I didn't know how I would find the time, given the business. There we go, the peanut gallery.
Oh, yes.
So even though I didn't know where I'd find the time, being an honorary ranger for years, my mind went to sandparks, and I love conservation. I love rhino. I love animals, and so my mind immediately went to that. And so I thought, well, what happens if I do something quite unusual, something that hasn't ever been done before? and symbolically link all these sandparks, game reserves in the country, every one of them, by mountain bike, um, and hopefully just, as I say, symbolically link the various parks. We all stand for something in our conservation circle, and who are our country's custodian of our natural heritage. So it was, and perhaps something even more unusual would, in terms of the concept, was that I would get my family to be a part of this, and so ultimately my wife Nikki and our kids Samuel and Laura, a friend of ours, Melissa, who's almost like our daughter, and my parents, Dave and Val, and father-in-law Martin. So we really wanted to do something to show that 3 generations are stepping up with some responsible citizenship for something that really matters, and that was rhino conservation, because it was very much on my heart at that time, that, and as it is now, that the way to end the abuse of our wildlife, and really to create a climate and a culture of conservation, is if we get the ordinary people involved. It's not enough for us to expect the government to do this, or private game reserves, and so on. The people have to stand up. It has to be a really a possession, I would say, that the people take of their own natural heritage and say, we are going to do something about this. So when that concept came to my mind, it was quite a mindful, because I thought, well, how the heck am I going to do this? I was very overweight. I hadn't done any exercise for about 13 years, just as I say, I was on that treadmill of the business. And so I really didn't know if I could do it. And it took me a year of training. You yourself have done expeditions, you know, the kind of work that goes into it.
Yeah.
And, I lost 20 kgs and just started training on an old mountain bike until I could get one sponsored. Unfortunately, Trevor Hayter gave me a Scott Spark. But and so that was it. We went on this adventure really over end of 2015, beginning of 2016, where for 2.5 months we joined each and every sand park, starting from Pafuri at the top and then working our way around. And we took with us a scroll of unity and conservation that the park managers all signed, subscribing to conservation and just showing their willingness to be involved. But what was more important about it, I think, is that each meeting that we had with the rangers, it was an opportunity as a representative of civil society in South Africa to basically say to them face to face, thank you for what you are doing for conservation. Thank you for sleeping in the bush, for risking those big poacher guns when you signed up for, being a ranger, not being a soldier. And as a country, we appreciate it. And we just saw as we moved around the country that there was this heartwarming, almost a transition taking place in these people, where they realized they were appreciated. And I'm not saying that we changed the world, but there's not enough thank yous and appreciation for what people in conservation are doing. So we generated a lot of interest, and at the end of it, we had an awareness goal, and we achieved about 3 million rands worth of marketing spend on that. We got all the sandbox communications people involved, and it was a huge success from that perspective. We also raised about 200,000 rand for our beneficiaries, which were rhino related beneficiaries. And then at the finish of the expedition, Kingsley Holgate, the great explorer and also the founder of Rhino Art, he organized a guard of honor to welcome me in at Addo, which was the last park, of Land Rovers. And I love Land Rovers, so it was quite special. Had all the Sandparks honorary rangers present as well, and all the rangers formed a platoon and ran in with us, as long as a lot of supporters. It was a very special day. But Kingsley said to me within a day, I think, of the expedition, it's a pity this didn't go as far as the southern parts of KZN. So the only park that I had visited in KZN was Golden Gate National Park, which is quite far north.
Yeah.
And at the time, which was now 2016, end of 2016, the rhino poaching frontier had started moving from Kruger down into the Eastern Cape and KZN,
Yeah.
as the pressure was exerted on the poachers in Kruger. And so it was only a day or two after the expedition that the seed was planted, and I started thinking about the OLLI Frontier Rhino Ride in 2017. And it would be a very different expedition, although, again, 3 generations involved, whereas the challenges in the first expedition was a 2.5 ride and 100 kilometers of cycling a day.
Wow.
This one would be 2 hours for 1 month, but I didn't quite realize the amount of climbing that was involved, but it was effectively 3.5 Everests that I had to ride.
Wow.
So that Transcar is very, very hilly.
Yeah.
And this time I joined all the private reserves, rhino bearing reserves, starting at Kakakama with Asia, and then I went via Edo to Shamwari and Amakala, Lalibela, Kwandwe, and all the way through the Transcar, which took me 4 days. And then there are a lot of small parks along the N2 that I visited all the way through to the Mozambique border, where we put up a sign that said, please close the gate, because the border post is very important, and rhino horn and so on is concerned. Rode away like crazy. And then riding on the last day with John Smith, the ex-Springbok captain, who, because by that time we had realized, there's a marketing aspect here and an educational aspect.
Yeah.
And we learned a few tricks, and one of them was that my wife Nikki would tow a life-size rhino called OLLI, and OLLI is an acronym for One Land Love It, which was the name of the expedition. And OLLI became a tool. So I've got wonderful images of and memories of riding to the Transcar, for example, and coming over a hill and seeing Nikki in the distance, because she'd go ahead by an hour or two, with a lot of the rural children standing around OLLI and her talking to them about the importance of rhino conservation. And and they had never seen a rhino and may never ever see a rhino, but there they stood in the shadow of this huge life-size rhino, and they were able to get a feel for the magnificence of this iconic animal, and could explain that the last major mammal that went extinct was the mammoth, which I think was 10,000 years ago or so, and this was the next animal that was going to go extinct unless we did something as a society. So we learned to use OLLI as a tool, and he can still be seen driving around Port Elizabeth a lot. And also we harnessed people like John Smith and celebrities, who would get involved. And you are one of them that that's taken on the mantle of OLLI, which we really appreciate. And people can relate to celebrities and public figures and realize, well, if they're doing it, I need to be involved as well, because this is a personal involvement that we need to do. It's not for bunny huggers, it's for citizens. So
absolutely,
that was the background then, Sharon, that gave rise to a more formal corporation, where 2.5 years ago we founded and formed One Land Love It as a non-profit, which made it a lot easier for people to donate and so on. And we have a full board of directors, and it's our intention then to try and be more deliberate in our approach and of creating an international footprint through OLLI. And we've always got a link to endurance sport, I think, because of the foundation of the expeditions. And that's obviously also why it's so great to have people like yourself with 100 miler and the garden marathons and the aerobics marathons. It's all part of the ethos of the business, of the endurance and moving, from caring to doing. And so that's in a fairly big nutshell the background of OLLI.
Fantastic, Wayne. And I love the fact that you guys are reaching out to people through endurance sport, which is something that is close to my heart for sure. And I know a whole lot of other people. And inevitably, if you are a mountain biker or a trail runner or any person that really appreciates how much effort goes into any form of endurance sport, I think that you can kind of relate to the endurance efforts that are being put in by our fan parks, by our rangers, by organizations such as OLLI. And that to me is really a big thing because you really cannot be a holistic or a whole person unless you, for me, in my mind, meet all of those big things, you know, the living healthy, the doing the exercise, caring about our environment and preserving it for future generations. Now,
Yeah.
you mentioned your family and how you involved
Yes.
them in your expedition. Now, obviously, and
Yes.
I've seen from your posts on Facebook, yours and Nikki's, and even Laura's, that family is very important to you. What did they think the first time you said, I'm going to do this thing? And by the way, you're all involved. How did they react?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very good question because you know, when I was sitting in the man cave, which is overlooking, we were saying Lovemore Heights, and you can sort of see across the bay towards Addo. You know, the those beautiful white dunes of the Alexandria Bay, and it was sort of sitting there that this whole concept came to me, and I did cigarette box calculations, working out how far is this, and how much would I have to ride because I can't spend too much time away from home, and so on. But I must tell you, when I came out and I said to Nikki, listen, this is what I want to do, and but I need you to back me on this thing, and I need you to think about it and pray about it. And I told her about it. She was quite horrified, and I think she thought I'd had like a moment of madness. So yeah, she later told me she didn't sort of take it any further because she wasn't sure, how serious I was about it. But it wasn't long. I think it was within a week or so that I came back and said, all right, so it's done. I'm convinced, and let's talk about how it's going to work. And again, I don't think to realize that that I had the concept of bringing the family in, because
Yes.
it's really a big and difficult concept to implement. If you're just riding yourself, it's fairly easy, although you need support. But when you start factoring in the costs of involving your greater family as well,
Yes.
and the fact that the kids are busy with varsity, or you now have to get more people um, to the ends of South Africa, it becomes a mammoth concept to digest. And so I think the kids were more wow, this is I remember Laura jumping in and saying, I'm there, let's do this, but I want to ride with you, and so on. But it's changed our lives, and I think that's the lesson. It's nothing much comes in terms of personal growth from not stretching yourself. And it's
Very
only like in my case when I actually took something that I thought was impossible for me, sitting overweight in the man cave, thinking 100 k's a day, 6,000 kilometers in 2.5 months, in what turned out to be the hottest year in 103 years.
oh,
Can you
wow.
do that? And I thought, well, no, not now. But I backed myself, and I thought with a lot of training I could get there. But it's to take that first step to actually, maybe it's a courageous step to step outside of what you think is possible, and it's changed our lives and I hope that the lives of lots of other people and animals as well, because of that difficult step in the man cave that day. Yeah.
That is absolutely amazing. I must say, you are definitely one of my heroes and one of the people that I look up to. But you mentioned that it changed your lives forever. Okay. Do you feel that it's actually brought you guys closer together as a family, having this common goal of conservation and moving from caring to doing? Because you and Laura also participated in the Addo Elephant Trail Run this year. and we're successful.
Sharon, sorry, the signal was very bad. I couldn't quite hear the question. Can you maybe just repeat it for me, please?
Sure, sure. What I asked is basically, you mentioned that it changed your lives as, it changed your lives forever embarking on this adventure. Would you say that it's actually brought you guys closer as a family and actually opened up the way for more adventures, because you and Laura did the Addo Trail Run this year and were successful in completing?
Yeah, absolutely. I can say it's become a fiber, or almost like a cord that's run through our family, and it's taught us lessons together as a family. So it's not something that we do for gain. So as much as we've established the non-profit organization, we don't earn anything out of it, and nor did we on the expedition. So it's, one could look at it to say it's a sacrifice of our time, but of course we don't see it that way at all. It's a part of our lives where one needs to give to your passions and to give to others, and to try and make a difference. And so that's what we're honoring, and that's what we're doing as a family, to say we can make a difference as a family. And I've always taken that approach as well. This is not a cyclist doing something. This is a family doing something. I just happen to be riding, but I mean, the organization that has been put in by somebody like Nikki, who worked tremendously hard. Laura, who does a lot on the marketing side, uh, for us as well. But it's been a family affair, and it has drawn us closer. So we've got memories now where there were certain stretches of the expedition where Daniel and Laura rode with me. We've got lots of, when you go through adversity and that kind of thing, it draws you closer to each other.
Absolutely.
And so we find that sometimes we have to pull ourselves back. So we're busy with the business and trying to make ends meet. It's not easy these days with small family businesses, especially in PE. But we gravitate towards our passion, which is OLLI, and we have to sometimes pull ourselves back to say, okay, hang on, just focus on the bread at this stage, and you'll get to it. But so yeah, it's certainly something that we love doing, and it's taught us a lot about life and a lot about about each other. And I think about our son Daniel, who picked up cancer, and he fought it, and he's cured of it, thank goodness. But it was, I think, a lot of the lessons in dealing with that, he also learned on the expedition. Look, it's his nature, obviously, he's got character, so it's not, you can't give all the credit to the expedition, but he certainly learned a lot about having to deal with pushing through where you don't think you can make it, and that mental strength of having to just be determined, its mind, having a strong mind, and so on. So yeah, it's almost, as I say, become a golden thread in our family, and it's taught us that life is not about us. It's about, as you say, it's a holistic view, and there's some kind of a balance that's introduced when you're doing something outside of your own ego or outside of your own needs, and where you can help other people. And I'm not saying that to sort of blow our own trumpet. It's really, we're very ordinary people, and perhaps that also helps people to relate to us. It's not like I'm a full-time professional athlete or adventurer. I'm a part-time adventurer, also trying to keep the business going with an ordinary family. But we do what we can to, in this case, speak for the helpless and to act for the helpless, being the rhino and other wildlife, and impact our environment. It's definitely brought us closer.
Fantastic. Well, it's amazing. It's just lovely that you incorporated your family into the whole adventure and caring about conservation and our wildlife. And I assume that because you, as you say, you're not a full-time athlete, you're not a full-time adventurer. You've really opened up that notion, that thinking that anybody can really do something. We can all do a little bit more. And if you're not currently doing anything, you can start doing something. Now, to people that will be listening to this podcast and watching this video, what can the normal run-of-the-mill citizen out there actually do? I mean, yes, we can make a donation, we can sign petitions, but what can you actually do more than what we are already doing to elevate the plight of our animals and more specifically our rhinos?
I think the first thing is to perhaps educate yourself on it. You know, there's a lot of people have a I think that, you know, without being demeaning, and I perhaps put myself in it to some extent, you almost think in channels or and this is my interest and that's what I'm going to focus on. But when one looks at civic society and then tries to understand how things work together and the importance of our environment and the role that our animals play in our world. You know, if I look at this COVID pandemic at the moment, you know, people are almost looking at the scenery of or the scenes of lying in the roads in Kruger, or you know, there's a lovely post by Dave Cooper, who's a wildlife vet in Shishuyu and Pelosi. His wife Debbie posted something about Dave going back into the bush now after his knee op, and sort of driving through Shishuyu and Pelosi and seeing more animals than he's ever seen in his life, just on the roads. And it's almost like nature is breathing again, and there's been such an outpouring of warmth towards that, as people can now, for, you know, sitting inside their own lounge maybe and locked up, looking out into their computer and sort of sensing that the importance of nature now that we don't have it in a lot of ways. So I think we have to think outside of our normal channels and not think somebody else is going to deal with issues which are important to all of us. And so that's the first thing, just to educate ourselves. What is the end result of not dealing with the rhino poaching issue? It's not going to end well for us as people, let alone the industries that supports. But, you know, there's something inside us which I think encourages us to stand for the helpless. So rhino can't do it on their own. So I think that's what people can do, just educate themselves. Why is there a need? And then take responsibility as an ordinary citizen on Earth. We have to do something for our environment. And so it's the same kind of thinking, I suppose, where somebody says, I'm going to recycle, as I'm going to also do something to get us you know, to win the victory of rhino. Because if we don't win this victory, we're not going to win any of the battles with the other wildlife or the environmental challenges. And we're surrounded by our environment. So yeah, I think as an ordinary person, educate, but then take that very important step of saying, how can I get involved? And if it's not something in terms of giving your own time, then as you said earlier, the least you can do is to say, look, I'm going to actually chip in a little bit of money, the cost of a hamburger, $50 or $100 or whatever. I'm going to chip that in just to show support to those that actually do something about it. But we cannot leave it. That's the bottom line. I think we've learned that as much as our rhino poaching figures are decreasing, there's less rhino to poach, and that's the only reason. It's a bad sign in my view to some extent. So step up. Something has to be done. It would be terrible if we lose rhino of our generation. So, but do something and choose somebody that is going to be an institution of integrity and where the money is going to come for conservation.
Absolutely. Somebody like the One Land Lovers Foundation.
Yeah, yeah, I can honestly say that we would fall in that category.
Oh, and I can vouch for your guys' integrity. Trust me, and I do all the time.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon.
My pleasure, believe me. And now, Wayne, in terms of conservation, there seems to be quite a few organizations out there that's doing quite a bit. Do you think there is a need for organizations maybe to collaborate more, or for individuals rather to put their efforts into existing organizations as opposed to starting up new ones? I'm just thinking, there's Mark Boucher, the ex-cricketer that's got the Boucher legacy. There's you guys, there's ARC, there's the Sheldrick Wildlife Foundation. There's so many of them. Have you seen through your history now working with conservation and more specifically rhino conservation that there's more people wanting to collaborate as opposed to each doing their own thing?
Yeah, Sharon, it's a good question, and I tend to feel at times that there are too many organizations, and with the popularity of social media, it can just be quite confusing, to be honest. I mean, you don't know where to look after a while. There's just so much information. Who do I support, and so on. And so I think to some extent there are too many organizations, and there is a big need to collaborate more. We're certainly trying to do that from our side. We're not jealous about our own beneficiaries. And I mean, if I can just go back in the last few weeks, we've assisted other non-profit organizations as well. So not only just providing, for example, Care for Wild Africa with much needed assistance for milk powder with orphans, because they're all going through difficult times at the moment financially, but also assisting Kariga, for example, where anti-poaching units are suddenly battling to find resources to do their jobs. But our passion is anti-poaching, and we're trying to get involved more and more there, where you can actually stop the poaching taking place in the first place, as opposed to after the fact. And so we've got some very exciting initiatives that we're getting involved in there. Some of which are fairly, we don't speak about them too much, but it's at least an effort in the right direction of anti-poaching. So yeah, I think you raise a very valid point. We need to maybe concentrate on supporting those that have proven themselves over time, that we can see clearly where the money is going. And I suspect that post-COVID, some of the smaller organizations are going to fall away because of the lack of funding, those that have got staff and so on. But one has to consider, that a lot of these organizations have arisen out of passion, and there's something to be said for that as well. And I don't think any should close just to make space for other people, but they should just increase on the collaboration side, which is your point. And assist and work together with other people. And so if there's a need to have people going to the High Court, maybe again a bad example, then let's all collaborate and let's all go to the High Court to show support for the judicial system in dealing with counter poaching and so on. In our case, not many people are focusing on awareness. There's organizations that are generating a lot of funding from overseas and so on, whereas people like Will Folds and John Ardendorf, a mate of mine who's now in Malawi, ex-Sandpox, they've always been of the view that, and I suppose Grant Folds as well, that awareness is critical.
Yes.
And not many people are doing it. And so if it took getting on a bicycle and riding around the country, generating, just sort of pointing to this is why we're doing it. There's a role for us to play as much as we are maybe smaller than a lot of the others. So yeah, it just depends on what you're doing, but where there's duplication, there's definitely got to be more collaboration on what we're seeing.
Fantastic. Now you've touched on two very important points there. One being basically lobbying at the High Court and showing support for the judicial system. And the other one is education. And if I do forget, please jog my memory there. Just in terms of that, I feel, and I kind of want to get your opinion on this, that a lot has been done, especially with a very high profile Northern trial in the Grahamstown High Court, to really hone in, arrest and bring to trial those poachers. But is enough being done? Do we have enough resources in our anti-poaching units, in our police force, our judicial system to actually really make a significant dent in not just the actual prosecuting process, but the investigations and trying to get into these poaching conglomerates?
I think a lot more can be done, but a lot of progress has been made at the same time. So if I take, for example, Kruger, there's been such a huge focus, and to an extent the figures I mentioned, the rhino figures the rhino numbers are lower, which accounts for the figures, but it's also obviously a huge impact made by those that are fighting the poaching scourge. So there's definitely a lot to be said for the improvement that has been made, and it's now to find where the weak links are in the process. So there's nothing worse than hearing of a situation where poachers have been brought to book, and then there's some kind of political interference in the prosecution, or there's some kind of a oopsie where documents get lost, or there are smart lawyers that are deliberately playing the delay game and asking for adjournment after adjournment and so on. So it's to find the weak links and just to focus on those. And I think I can say that there's been some really good progress. I mean, there's a lot of, we can point to where there's been sort of poor progress and the need for improvement. But definitely, I think we're on the right track, and it's now just about getting some consistently high sentences from the court. If they catch somebody, and let's support the prosecutors. There are only a handful of them that are really, I think, doing a great job, and they need all our support because I think they're on an uphill battle. So let's support them as much as we can, and then it's up to the judiciary to actually make sure that they're applying consistently high sentences in this. We've got it. It's just about we've got the process. It's just about managing it now, making sure that we can implement it. And it all hinges on good people. There's some really good people out there, and unfortunately, if a good person falls down, there's not somebody readily standing into their place like a prosecutor. So I think that's a big area where we can maybe do a little bit more work.
Absolutely.
You mentioned the education as well. Did you want to ask something specifically about that?
Yes. Absolutely. Because me personally, I'm very passionate about spreading awareness, educating people, and I think we spoke about this before, that the focus really should be your younger generation, because there's so much power in festive power. We need to use kids, and it sounds awful, but we need to use those kids to take the message back to their homes and their communities about our rhino and why it is important to protect these animals. Because you know, I think the kids will get it. Once they're gone forever. Once they've been poached and eradicated from Earth, there's no coming back, you know. So I know that you and Nikki also focus a lot on education, but can you just tell us a little bit about that? And also, do you feel, like me, that there's a lot more that we can do in that respect?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and we're very passionate about it. Nikki is a qualified teacher, and so it's a natural progression to dealing with kids, and it's happened naturally with me after the expedition as well, where there were a number of schools that stepped up to say, listen, we're going to support you in your ride, and you know, mostly the primary schools. And so as a result of that, I've literally spoken to thousands of school kids in talks in assembly, and um, and so I've got a pretty good feel for the information out there, you know, and the feeling amongst the children, the level of buy-in, and I can tell you, it's high. You know, the kids in the primary schools, they get it. I think they see the need, but not all the schools. It's the schools that have actually made a point of educating the children, taking them to you know, a game park visit, let them in the case of Port Elizabeth, taking them to Kakakama, for example, letting them see a rhino and make that emotional connection with the animal, and so on. And so what we try to do is whereas kids can't necessarily get out to a game park, we take the game park to them in the form of OLLI, and we park OLLI outside, you know, so it's never just a matter of me pitching up, and with the team, we arrive with OLLI, and we let the kids actually get a feel for, as I say, this iconic animal and why we should be protecting them and so on. And you know, there's definite buy-in, and as you correctly say, I mean, if you want to change a family, change the child, it's the children now that are going home and saying to their parents, why did you throw that piece of paper out of the window of the car? It's our kids are educating us, and so we focus on that. And the funds that we get um, in in our nonprofit, we try and make sure that we get to the schools. There's various programs that we're busy with. If you go onto our Facebook page, just Google One Man Love It Expedition, and you'll see, you know, we're busy with challenges for Kids with Stories, running together with Nikki and Melissa, who's also a teacher. And just trying to get the kids to think about it. So in much the same way, I suppose, as rhino art, where they say, draw something, it stimulates your creativity and your reasoning. And why am I doing this? And what is the importance? And you know, we've got a view to sort of take this to other sort of creative arts as well, like music, and getting kids to sing or play Claire Ven's song that she wrote for us, One Man Love It, and so on. Because kids, you know, it's incorporate conservation in their ordinary lives and education at school, because that's been overlooked. The trick is to get it into some of the more rural, you know, the sort of education system, not the kind of Model C, old Model C schools, but just to try and expose it, and you know, in the rural areas, and maybe give the kids a feel for that, and an understanding of the importance of it as well. So we are so passionate about educating the kids. So on the one hand, it's the children. On the other hand, it's sort of anti-poaching, you know, the hardcore stuff that it's helped the guys to catch the baddies and stop the rhinos being poached. But it's a two-pronged approach, and we want to speak to those that should be hearing the message, and we'll take every opportunity that we can to do that.
Fantastic. I can't fault that at all. And I love the fact that you guys have got the soft approach, you know, working with the kids, educating the kids, and I've seen people's reaction to OLLI.
Yeah, always a smile, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. But then also highlighting or assisting or pushing funds and awareness into anti-poaching. Yes, those are probably the two ends of the scale. You've got the really soft approach and the really tough, hardcore war that our anti-poaching members are fighting, because it is a war.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, you know, there's everything else in between, creating the awareness, educating, doing the expeditions, etc., which is absolutely fabulous. Now, speaking of expeditions, oh wait, before we get to that, I want to ask you about the book.
Yes.
You mentioned the book when we started chatting. So
Yes, yeah.
tell me about the book. Is that literally just depicting or talking about your adventures on your 2 expeditions that you did?
Yeah, so Sharon, I'm loving writing it. It's, you know, I've wanted to spend more time on it, but I'm always so snowed under with work that I've, you know, it's been stop, start, stop, start. And so I've now had the opportunity to actually, to really sit down and get into it. And as I say, I'm loving it. It's, you know, the memories are so clear in my mind. I can almost go back to a particular day and remember the day, you know, in terms of the riding and so on. But
wow.
I also made a point of keeping a detailed journal every day.
Fantastic.
Of the journey and my thoughts at the time as I went through each of the parts. So the book is focusing really on the first expedition,
Okay.
the 6,000 kilometer expedition, and it's, I can say it's a combination of the ride itself, but also the story of me. So I've invested in it, and it's about an ordinary person's life, and you know, pretty much what we've spoken about today, but the story of an ordinary person getting involved in conservation and why. And so it's certainly not an autobiography, but it's it's talking about some of my experiences in life and dealing with challenges, and you know, and lessons that I've learned in the expedition that help with that, not only with challenges, but all aspects of life, how to be a better person, a better businessman, a better family man, and so on. So, so far, you know, I'm hoping that it's really will be a nice read for people that, you know, anecdotal, humor, and and will really just give them a feel for this beautiful country of ours that, through my eyes as I rode around it, um, and what I saw, and some of the funny things I saw, and some of the sad things I saw. So yeah, I'm hoping to get it out by the end of this year. Now that I've made some really strong progress on it, I'm excited about it.
That will be fantastic. Personally, I can't wait. And I want a signed copy, please.
Absolutely.
I will pay for happily.
I'm waiting for your book as well. I'm sure you could write it too at this stage.
All in good time, man. All in good time.
Yeah.
One day when I'm big.
Yeah. Are you there? Well, you're too busy right now.
Okay, now just tell me around the book when it's published. Are we going to see a little bit of marketing around it? Maybe some book signing, maybe a few talks.
Absolutely, yeah. I've really enjoyed the talking aspect, and we spoke a bit earlier about how this kind of expedition changes people. I'm not a natural speaker, I don't think, but as a result of the expedition, I found myself in the almost like the uncharacteristic position of having to talk to people, and at schools and the media and so on. And you know, it wasn't long before I figured that people need champions or leaders. It inspires them. You know, it inspires a child. Yeah, that guy rode a bicycle for Rhino. Maybe I should consider doing something. And so I've enjoyed that sort of encouragement and inspirational part of any of the talks that I've done. And so certainly, and so any of the sort of motivational talks I do incorporate Rhino and the expedition, by the way, but for the cause. But certainly when the book is launched, I will be holding, you know, launches and doing talks, and just to explain a little bit of the background and taking the opportunity that presents from a marketing point of view as well. People need to see it, and hopefully anybody that likes sandparks as well would also just love to read it, because it's as I say, it's something that hasn't been done before, where each sandparks has been written to, and it gives a very nice feel for the entire country in terms of our wildlife conservation.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And hopefully, as you said, it will inspire some young people out there, or maybe even some older people, to do more than what they currently do. There's another important point that I think you touched on for me personally now. I, as a person, I'm way more inspired by an ordinary person doing something extraordinary than by a celebrity, for instance, or a mega athlete that's got all the time in the world, and that's basically all they do. And they've got all the financial backup. You guys really did this at a time when it was a bit wonky for you guys, and you faced some challenges, but you still did it. You persevered, and you came out of it a better, stronger family. So for me, that is fantastic. That's just amazing, and I cannot wait to read your book.
Yeah, thank you. And there are a lot of that in there, and thank you. I appreciate that. It's something that's important to us.
Awesome.
You know, what's nice about what we're doing now as well is because we've got a non-profit. We've got more than just our family that are, that are pushing the cause. So our board of directors, Andrew Stewart and Lynn Webb and Dirk Groenewald, besides Nikki and I, and then the sort of greater family like yourself and Steve Lancaster and others that have associated with us, Grant Bresler and that's been exciting to us as well. That our family has grown, if I can put it that way, with like-minded people that are people of integrity and passion, and that's how it starts, and that can have a huge ripple effect.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. And believe me, as I said to you previously, and I'm going to state this again publicly, my intentions is definitely to stick around for as long as you guys want me around.
We're so grateful for your involvement, Shane. Thank you, and we love your energy and what you bring to it. You epitomize that moving from caring to doing. As I say, you're like the Energizer Bunny. You just keep going, but it's so symbolic of what we need to be doing. It's an upward battle that we have right now, and it's not easy to fight it. It is an endurance game that we're in, but it's a passion and the drive that's actually going to get us over that line as well.
Absolutely, and it is so symbolic of life as such, especially now in this time. Which brings me to my next question. And bear with me, I'm not going to keep you too much longer, maybe.
Yeah.
But in terms of what's happening worldwide now with this corona crisis, on the one hand, we have the fact that you can almost hear Earth breathing a sigh of relief. Thank goodness the humans are under lockdown. But on the other hand, we have international tourism, national tourism, that has come to a grinding halt. And we know that that is affecting our anti-poaching efforts, our conservation efforts. Do you think that is something that we're only going to really feel the brunt of that at a later stage, and that we'll hopefully still be able to pull back during 2020?
Yeah, something that really worries me, to be honest, because it's very clear we're sitting here on the 22nd of April, and we know that in terms of South African environment, where we are home to most of the world's rhino, but we know that the virus is really only starting to hit, as the president said last night, we're at the early stages of this, and they're saying it's going to peak in September. What really worries me is that the tourism industry has just collapsed. And as much as there's aid that's being offered, it's difficult to get to it. And already some of the reserves are stretched.
Yeah.
So I know that the guys that, if I could just talk about the Eastern Cape without speaking out of turn, but I know that our reserves, you know, here, like your Krafikama or your Karifa and your Amakala and um, Lalibelas and Shabaris and all of these guys that are actually investing a lot of their money that they get from tourists into counter poaching already. So to lose the tourism income is going to be devastating for them. And it makes me, and obviously I see the importance. People are the focus. Yeah, we have to save lives, and I'm not cheapening that at all. Um, but I do say let's spare a thought as well for for the animals
Yeah.
because that are being supported by people, the counter-poaching, anti-poaching units and so on. We also need a livelihood, but I'm worried that it's going to be overlooked at this stage. And so those that do give to rhino and other conservation cause, please continue to give because I think this is it's going to take us um, you know, at least a year, I think, to come out of this and to start getting to a point where people are willing to travel again, to come and see our beautiful country and to start investing money in us, um, at least a year. So, let's just keep that love going for conservation as much as we can, because I am worried that, the need for poachers to make more money is going to grow. Um, and as much as during lockdown, it's been good for us in that, anybody, if you've got four people in a car, the roadblock, the police will pick it up. And it normally takes four people in a poaching incident, three on the ground, one in the car. So they stand out at this stage during lockdown. But after lockdown, um, I think I think that some of the syndicates are going to be making up for lost time. And if we don't just bear them in mind, um, we could have a serious problem on our hands in terms of coaching.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that's been really in the forefront of my mind as well. Um, and what's worrying to me is that, there's been reports of poaching happening and poaching gangs being arrested in Uganda, for instance. So obviously, I think that your poachers are going to be taking the gap. They're going to try and take the gap. And bearing in mind that a lot of this is driven by international poaching units, almost conglomerates.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you think that enough is being done by governments, by organizations to really educate our international people? I'm thinking more specifically your Asian countries where there's still, even in the corona crisis, where we've heard reports of people saying, take rhino horn and bear bile, it will cure your corona. Do you feel, and I know there's a lot of good work that's being done internationally. We've got another little person, another little person that has joined the conversation here.
It's like a menagerie.
The little kitty cat. It's their house. We have spotting rights here.
Yes, it is.
The animal's house.
Especially during lockdown, they're running the place.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So, yeah, do you feel that enough is being done on an international forum to really educate these people on whom the poachers prey almost to sell their goods to? Because, there's all these myths doing the round that rhino horn can cure this, rhino horn can cure that. And we know it's not true. And how do you feel our government and collaborations between other governments and organizations can really come together and really start putting an end to all these nonsense rumors out there that rhino horn can do certain things for you that we know it can't do.
Yeah, I must say it's pretty disheartening when we start our lockdown and then you hear that the Chinese wet markets are back in operation again.
Absolutely.
It's like,
devastating.
what the heck can people not? If this hasn't changed people's outlook, what the heck is going to change it? So it's a bit horrific. But a friend of ours, Vanessa from Rhino, who sadly passed away a couple of years ago on Table Mountain. Vanessa told us once about her and her sister's ride through Vietnam, and they were trying exactly that, to Rhino, the name of the expedition, to stop people from um, you know buying rhino horn and trying to educate them on that. And she told me about a meeting that she sat in where they showed footage of a rhino being poached, and how some of the people in the auditorium that they were showing this movie to were in tears and walked out and said, but we didn't realize that they actually killed the animal or cut the horn off. They were under some kind of misconception that the horn fell off, and that's how it was harvested and so on. So there was definitely an educational issue, and a lot of good work is being done in that regard. Again, I can point to Rhino Art. I know that they're very involved in that as well. But not enough is being done, and I tend to always come back to to political will. And for some reason, we tiptoe around China and Vietnam and so on. And it's about time as a government that we actually put our foot down where there are incidents where it becomes clear that that's exactly where our horn is ending up, that we exert some kind of a political pressure on those countries. I wonder if it's even discussed. But there's definitely a lack of political will. We turn a blind eye to things. I mean, this year on our coast, and I hope it's not fake news, but I mean, you see all this footage of people, sort of Chinese trawlers coming into our Port Elizabeth Bay area and taking the fish or the shark fins and then going out in the next morning and so on, because there's been no limit on permits, or people not even aware that they're there. So there's a lack of focus on these things, and I'm talking outside of rhino now as well. But certainly political will is lacking, and we need to stop tiptoeing around these eastern countries and maybe just educate them on how serious we are about it. Maybe it should have an impact on trade, but I say that knowing that we are mostly the recipients of their product. But yeah, education is ongoing, but I mean, I often think it's going to take a generation, and in the meantime, all we really have is to police it and stop it going out of our borders as best as we can, but also just educating people in our community. So something that they've got working very, very well in places like Malawi. And my friend John Ardendorf mentions it to me in Majeti, where he's now park manager. It's such a good buy-in from the community, where the community sees the park as theirs as well, and they can understand why the park is there. So they're involved in, the poachers have a hard time in that area, and that's it starts there, I suppose, in South Africa as well. Unless we get some kind of a involvement between the community and the parks, perhaps Richtersveld. Richtersveld is one of the examples where that's working, where the community is involved in decisions, and they almost lease the land to the park, if I've got it correct. But there's a joint management of the park. Perhaps something like that is going to be the answer in South Africa, where the community outs the poachers and protects the park from their side. But all of that is going to take political will as well. So it's got to start on the ground. That's really what I'm saying, that the politicians have to support it and drive it home with, from their side as well.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And I've actually had discussions with numerous people, mostly on trail runs, believe it or not, about that, that we know poaching is not an animal thing, it's a human thing. And, myself and one of my good friends, Marilyn Zimmerman, you might know her husband, David.
Yes. Yes, I do, yeah.
Yeah, we've been chatting about, how do you get back into the hearts and the minds of the community? How do you make that emotional connection? And I think we both agree that the answer is education. It's got to be education and awareness. And, you just need to connect those dots again. And as we said, get the communities involved, give them ownership of the animals and the land in some way or another. Make them understand or get them to understand that it is really and truly joint custody. It's up to each and every one of us.
It's got to be a benefit, hey, for them as well. So, so that they're part of the management of it, and then, they are protected.
Sorry, I lost you there, Wayne. Oh, you're back. Okay.
Lost you for a while. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Can you just repeat that last bit? I didn't hear what you said there.
Yeah, I just said sorry. We lost the signal, but it looks like it's all back now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So now I'm getting to my last question for you today, but I always reserve the right to interview you again and again and again. And I'm already booking my interview now for when you launch the book, okay?
Absolute pleasure, yeah.
Besides your book, okay, what is next for you on a personal level, for your family, and for the OLLI Foundation?
Yeah, so at this stage, we're investing a lot of time in our businesses, and that's as a family, that's obviously a big focus for us right now, although the kids are sort of on the ace. But we would like to, from an OLLI perspective, sometime later in the year, but we had to push the pause button now until we see what happens with COVID. But we wanted to do a ride, from Cape Town to PE, to try and raise funds for the nonprofit. Laura on the marketing side is driving quite hard to raise funds through our OLLI shop. If you go onto our website at oneland.co.za, you'll see that we have collaboration there with Abelard Jewelers, for example, with Charlie and Carol Jackson, and a wonderful range that they've developed, and some of the proceeds go to us. But also with the cycling kit and the T-shirts, and Laura is looking hard at getting some sort of trail running OLLI related kit involved, on our catalog as well. But so we're doing what we can just to keep the income coming in there. And then we're going to do a big drive in September on the 22nd for World Rhino Day, which will be the OLLI move. Last year we did it, and this year we're hoping to build on that foundation. And hopefully by that time we will have enough normality to reign, not only the celebrities around the world to do some extraordinary moves. We've got visions of people climbing the Alps, or growing oceans, or whatever, ultimately, in a symbolic show of solidarity for our rhino and other animals and so on that particular day. So we say, if you care for animals on that day, let your hair down. And so we'll be focusing on that, and it's part of our effort from our base in PE, to go international with the awareness side of things, and hopefully doing something that needs to be done for our rhino.
Oh, that sounds very exciting. And as per usual, you guys can definitely count on myself and all my Iron Angels. And hopefully we've grown the community a little bit, you know, to join in the whole OLLI Move initiative for World Rhino Day, leading up to and beyond, obviously. And then from my side, Wayne, I just want to say to you guys that it's so amazing that we have somebody such as yourself, your lovely wife, your kids, parents on both sides, you know, that care enough and that's prepared to put themselves out there, you know, to put your weight behind this cause and to stay the cause. For this cause.
Thank you so much.
Not a cause.
Yeah, for the cause, yeah. Thank you, and it's people like yourselves that make it so much easier for us, and we just feel like we're part of the community, and we're pushing in the same direction. So we appreciate your support as well, Sharon.
Always a pleasure, and as always, absolute pleasure to chat to you. You know, you're really one of those easy people to interview. Let's be honest.
Good.
Yeah. Conversation just flows. It's amazing. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But thank you so much, and keep doing what you're doing. And yeah, as I said, I'll be sticking around for as long as the OLLI Foundation wants.
Right. We love it. Thank you, and thanks for all that you're doing. We're looking forward to probably watching more aerobics and doing it. But yeah, but thanks for your initiatives. We appreciate it, Sharon.
It's definitely only a pleasure. You know, as I said, I totally subscribe to this whole move from caring to doing. And if it involves me coloring my hair different colors and jumping around in an 80s outfit, doing aerobics, and so be it.
Yeah, fantastic. No, you inspire us as well. Thank you.
Only a pleasure. And the feeling is definitely mutual. But thanks so much. We'll definitely be chatting again. And yeah, we'll just keep going, you know, keep moving forward.
Absolutely, that's it. Keep moving forward. That's the thing. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Sharon.
We'll chat soon.
Lovely chatting. Thank you.
Bye for now.
Lovely chatting. Cheers. Bye-bye.